Hello everyone and welcome to today's episode of the Osasu Show. Today we explore the role of development partners in Nigeria. For as far back as I can remember, development partners have always had a stake in the growth and development of our dear nation. Today I'll be speaking to the Resident Program Director, Central Browns of the International Republican Institute, IRI. He'll be speaking to us about their objectives and what they are doing in Nigeria to not only further our democracy, but to ensure development. Don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back on the Osasu Show. Welcome back to the Osasu Show. Joining me now is the Resident Program Director of the International Republican Institute, Central Barnes. Thank you so much for joining us in today's program.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So can you speak to us about the role of IRI in furthering Nigeria's democracy and what you intend to achieve in the next 4 years?
Sure. So the International Republican Institute has been in Nigeria since 1999, and we've been working to enhance the democratic process here in the country. Our main objective is working with political parties, mostly to increase participation in political parties by youth, women, and persons with disabilities, and then also to strengthen the political party's ability to behave like a political party. So that's what we have been doing since 1999. You know, if you look back over the course of those years, there's been some success, maybe some places where we need to work on. But I think, you know, that gives us leverage for moving forward in the next 4 years. And what we hope to do in the next 4 years is really to localize politics. We want to take it away from Abuja, and we want to take it back to kind of the grassroots, as people like to say. And so a lot of our work in the next 4 years will be trying to connect political parties with their elected officials at the state level. So we'll be doing a lot of work at the state level, trying to bridge the gap that exists between political parties and elected officials. Because we all know in Nigeria that once you become the candidate, you kind of distance yourself from the party, you kind of run on your own platform, you do your own thing, you hire your own agents. And so what we want to do is create greater synergy between the political party and the elected official.
Can you talk to me some more about your successes? Because when people like yourself say we've recorded certain successes since 1999, which was the advent of our democracy, till today, some of us are skeptical because we kind of see, or we worry that the political situation in our country is actually deteriorating. So we wonder, what kind of successes do you have on record that IRI has contributed to Nigeria's democracy?
Well, sometimes it's hard to look back, right? When you look back over the course of the last 20 years, trying to look at what have been the success with political parties. But in a lot of ways, when political parties started in 1999, not that they started, but when what the political parties that we have today started in 1999, PDP and others, you didn't have positions within the party that were dedicated to marginalized groups. And so through the work of IRI, with some really strong women within political parties, we were able to get a woman leader and then a youth leader, and then now even a persons with disability leader. The problem with that is all good things have consequences, right? Is that that's the only position that those individuals have been holding. And so what was probably a breakthrough in 2003, maybe 2004, has now become a hindrance. So now we're working in trying to broaden that, say, okay, you have that position, but now women should have other positions, youth should have other positions. So you should think about the ideal of if the person serving in the principal position is a man, then the deputy should be a woman, or vice versa. If it's the woman serving in the principal, then the deputy should be a man. So those are things that we're working on as we're going forward. Other successes, I think, if you look at the political I know coming out of 2019, it's hard to look back and, we want to look back and think of the fun years. But I would say leading up to 2011 and especially into 2015, there were a lot of practices both done within political parties and also with INEC and others that have changed the equation that we have. Yeah, now vote buying has increased and the coalition center has become the place where rigging is happening. But at the same time, I think if you look at the fact that political parties are a bit more open than they were, say, 18 or 16 years ago, they're releasing information that there used to be a time they didn't release. INEC is requiring them to do certain things that they weren't doing. So they're small benchmarks, and I think for the average person, if you look, you think nothing has changed. But I think if you put on, the right type of lens to look and see, you can begin to see.
Because I'm just wondering what type of lens I need to put on to see the successes, especially when it comes to intra-party politics.
Yes.
When you're assessing the system of governance within the political party itself, it's very hard to attribute that to a democratic sort of governance.
Yeah.
You see, the chairman of a party can just impose a candidate on the people. So whoever actually won that ticket, it will be stripped of him or her, and it will be given to the chairman's favorite or whoever is wielding the power in that state. So it's really hard to see the successes in that area. But in 2019 elections, leading up to the 2019 elections particularly, we saw that a lot of women vied for political positions. They were either marginalized in the sense that they were just not even, in the running at all, or they won the ticket and it was taken away from them. Then finally, after the 2019 elections, we see that only 7 women are in the Senate. And I believe that's lower than last 4 years, which was 9 women in the Senate. So when we look at these numbers, it's really hard for an average Joe like myself to look at the successes. So IRI has invested $5.5 million, I believe, from 2018 to 2020 in helping political parties. Can you tell me how these funds are going to be channeled?
Sure, and I also think, to build on your point, and I think it's hard to see with the naked eye because of all the challenges that you just laid out. And I think those are the realities that we're facing on the ground. And I think, to put some political spin on the situation, I would like to think that a lot of this comes from both the broken system that we operate in, where state resources is what everyone's vying for and everyone wants to control. So it makes political, politics the do or die affair that we all talk about here. But I think also too is that the system has become more open at the same time, in the fact that you now have competing political parties. Now, if the naked eye was to look at the political parties, you would see the same names who were once in one party and another party. But at the same time, now you have 2 giants fighting each other, which creates, unfortunately, the old African proverb that says, when elephants fight, it's the grass that that suffers. And that's what we're seeing, is that elephants are fighting, and so the people on the ground are the ones who are suffering in this situation. And if you really listen to some of the stories of candidates, who didn't win but who have very vibrant stories, it really is depressing to hear how people don't. Not everyone, but there's certain sects of people who don't really want to hear about the issues because poverty is such an issue in their lives. They just want to know where the money is coming from. I think the one thing that we really want to focus on is, how do we focus on building the capacity of women? I think that's an important aspect to ensuring that women are ready for 2023, because it's not just bringing women into a workshop, celebrating that we're all in this room together and moving forward. It's about getting women in the political party system. And that's what RI is trying to do. And that's the mentality that we're trying to break. Because even in the US and the UK, parties are looking for people who have moved up through the party system. So if you don't have women who sit on the table of the state executive committee or the national executive committee, then, or the state working committees or the national working committees, then you're not going to have women as candidates, because these women are going to come from the outside. And then if you're coming from the outside, you have to work a lot harder to get into the process. So what we're trying to do is encourage women and youth and persons with disability. Is now is the time to get involved in the political parties. Now is the time to find a way to engage with leaders, to ensure that by the time the primaries come, you're in a position where you can move up. And I think we forget that Elections here are not decided in primaries. Elections are decided in the congresses for the parties. I remember we were meeting with a woman leader from a state in the Southwest, and she told me that when the congresses ended, there was a person in the party who wanted to run for governor. And when the congresses ended, he left the party. And when she went to him and said, "Why did you leave the party?" He said, "I knew by the people who were elected in those party positions that I wouldn't be the candidate when it was time for election. So there was nothing left for me here, so I might as well move on." And that's what we forget. We put all our attention on the primaries, right? But the attention should be on the congresses, because that's where the
structures are
being built and preparing for the election. So that's what we are also hoping to do as we move to into 2023.
Okay, so my question about the $5.5 million that was channeled towards the 2018-2020 period, can you speak to me more about why IRI has chosen this period? Because giving the 2019 elections, 2023 elections, so we want to know why this period and what exactly are these funds channeled towards?
Sure. So the money we receive comes from the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, and is part of their country development strategy about enhancing various segments of Nigerians' society. And so we're part of their good governance, democratic governance. There are two other organizations that we work kind of in partnership with, which is IFIS, which works with INEC, and then NDI, the National Democratic Institute, which works with civil society organizations. So each one of us are working with a segment of the democratic space here in Nigeria. And so for us, our last program ended in 2017, and so that's when this program started. It really started at the end of 2017. It started November 2017. So we're starting at the place where our last program ended. But it was going to cover the 2019 election cycle and basically a year and a half after that election cycle. So what we are hoping to do with the money that we have after the elections, we're really hoping to really hone in on this gap that I mentioned about between political parties and elected officials. And we really want to spend time building the capacity of the state assembly to go out and meet with their constituents. So there'll be a lot of engagement around town halls. There'll be a lot of engagements around accountability and oversight. So we'll be working with several committees in the state assemblies. And then there will be a lot of work around what the elected official is seeing in their constituency, that they're passing that information back onto their party, right? Because the party should be building policy ideals that the state assembly
are reporting. The National Assembly
and the National Assembly too are going out to say. Yes. So then you have a better idea of what's going on in the state.
Of what the issues are on the ground. Because most of these legislators, they win election and every 4 years, they just sit in Abuja.
Exactly.
Yes, and they never go back home to actually feel the pulse of the masses and see what needs to be done. Exactly. So I'm glad that IRI is bridging that gap and ensuring that, there's a stronger communication between the constituents and the public service holders.
Yeah, because I think that's an important place because, someone said to me in some of these inconclusive elections that there was more development going on in the states in these inconclusive gubernatorial between the supplementary elections than there was before the elections because people were realizing that the public was demanding, what have you done? And I think that's important because, coming from the United States, coming from the American political system, right, there's a sense amongst people that as a public official, you work for me. And so you are responsible to me. You have to report back to me what you're doing. And that's the same responsibility that we want to put in the citizens, that the citizens are the employer. The politician is the employee. Yes. So we need to break the cycle. And I have to be careful because I don't want to get into the traditional and hierarchy that we see leaders. But at the end of the day, if you want a traditional title where people respect you at a level of respect, then you should go get a traditional title.
Exactly.
But if you want to be a public service, then you need to realize that I'm your employer.
I'm so happy you said that because the Osasu Show, we held a symposium last year, that's the magazine actually, Nigeria Rising Its Time, establishing social accountability between the electorate and public service holders. And before this, a lot of people said, maybe it's just going to be another talk shop, a gathering of these politicians and everyone is just going to talk about what they want to do and never actually do it. And at the opening of this symposium, I recapped what the promises of some ministers and some state governors were the previous year and how they finally completed it this year leading up to this symposium, to show that our actions, our call for accountability and transparency is very important. They are listening. They're actually, more motivated to ensure that they carry out their responsibilities if we are aware of what those responsibilities are and our role as Nigerian citizens to hold them accountable. Yes. So I definitely commend IRI for the job that it's doing. I think that you guys can do more and hopefully will do more with the Nigerian system in improving our democracy. But finally, I spoke briefly earlier about legislators who never go home to their constituency until it's time for elections. How do we transcend from just talking to them to ensure that there are actually consequences for actions like this? What role can IRI play in ensuring that?
I think also too, another part of our program too is that we also want to work with civil society organizations to also build those checks and balances that should be put in place to ensure that legislators are doing exactly what you're saying. That you have to come back to your constituency. These are the people who put you in place. Yes. And so you need to come back and you need to check the pulse of what's going on in the constituency. And so what we want to also do is work with civil society organizations who are also engaging with people, bringing people for different types of symposiums or, town halls to discuss issues, and then bringing in these state assembly people to talk about these particular issues. Some of the focus of USAID is focusing on water and sanitation, education, and healthcare. So what we want to hear is, what do your state assembly people have to say about these issues, and to really, challenge them. And I know that is a new ideal in Nigeria. That's a new ideal, kind of in the political space here. But you have to challenge, because if you don't challenge them, they're never going to step up and do what you want them to do. And I think being challenged is what I encourage my staff to do in the office, is that challenge me on what we're doing, so you and I both come to a resolution that what you and I have agreed to is the best strategy for moving forward. And that's what it has to be with a politician. You have to challenge him. I worked for politicians for many of the years I lived in the United States before I came to Nigeria. And the one thing, there was two things that we did in our office. Number one, if a constituent was anywhere around our office, we made sure that we saw that constituent. In the US, constituents typically will venture into your office just to say, oh, I'm from the district, I just wanted to say hello. And if I knew the congressman was in his office, I would break to his office and say, there's a constituent out here, you need to come see them. Because you just want to say, thank you for visiting. How are you enjoying Washington, D.C.? What is it that I can do for you? How can I better represent you? Just to give that person an opinion. The other thing that we always did with our congressman was we always challenged him, right? We would always come into his office, we would go through our issues, and then we would challenge each other. I would say what I thought was the best way for him to support a certain issue. He would challenge me on that, and we would go back and forth. And I think that's important for governance, is the whole ideal of like the constant growth and challenge that comes. And I think that's the important parts of governance, is getting, I think there's just so many ideas I have at this moment, but just getting people to understand that the constituent is the employer.
Yes, most
I am the employee. And I want my staff to challenge me, because when I go out and I make a speech or I say something, I want to ensure that I'm saying what's right.
Most definitely.
Because, we used to always tell my boss, you're a reflection of all of us. If you crash and burn, we crash and burn. So we need you to know what you're talking about, because if you don't know what you're talking about, people are like, hey, his staff, they're not doing a very good job of keeping him up to date. So.
Most definitely. That's a fine place to leave it, Mr. Sental Barnes. Thank you so much for your time. We'll take a short break right now. When we return, we'll bring you more on the Osasu Show Foundation.
About 10 minutes to 3 o'clock, the bulldozer drove in with armed men, and a host of them, they drove in. But we didn't want to distract our prayers. We continued. Then one of them stepped in and told me, Pastor, I should wait for the prayer and come and give him attention. I waited. I said, what is it? He said that they have order to demolish this place. I should call my men to come and evacuate everything that is in the church, that they will demolish this place. I said, I'm still praying. Allow me to run through the course of my praying. So I rounded up the prayer and came out. By the time I came out, this is where they started. This is the poultry, and where the yam and egg for the children are being kept to ensure their balanced diet. So they started with it.
When the demolition started, from the poultry down to the school, we were still trying to get one or two things out. In the school, we had books in the library we were trying to bring out. We had computers in the computer lab we were trying to bring out. And that was when they just started demolishing the school.
I was inside our room reading for exam. By then, I was just busy reading and they called us out that everybody should come outside, that they want to demolish the place. So as we were out, some people were sleeping while some were reading. Then we came out and they demolished the place. And we gathered here begging and praying, but all went in vain and they refused to help us.
They arrested me and put me inside their van that was there, while they continued mauling down everything. This one, they started with this, killed a lot of the chicken. The other ones that freed flew away, both the turkeys and the chickens. You can see few of them just walking around. And then they continued with the school. And the school was upgraded recently by a particular person with 1.2 million. The library of the school was upgraded. They mashed down everything. Even the chairs, the desks of the children that was recently donated, all of them were crushed. So they finished with that. People were still begging them. The children were under the tree there. Some were crying, some were praying, some were praising God. Some were shitting on their clothes, some were peeing. The scene was horrific. It was like a movie scene.
Most of our foodstuff and everything was still trapped inside this place. Some were scattered. We were
able to get one or two things out, but so many of our properties and foodstuff are still buried down in those rubbles.
The place we are living and the place is not comfortable, and the place will not reach any of us because we are much, and the place, and if the room is small, then we want to move to another place that is better. Dear Nigerians, what we want from you is that we want to come back to our home, and we need your help to help us to come back to our home. Because the man said that he has wealth to destroy us, but we ask for the help of Nigeria to help us to come back to our home. I want to appreciate everybody and all the Nigeria that will support us to help us to come back to this home. I say a very big thank you to you, and I pray that God will replenish you in Jesus' name. Dear Nigeria, I need a place. I need you people to help us to find a place that we live, and to find a better place that we live and play and do what we want to do, and a better school for us, and repair our house back.
That's it for today's program. Don't forget to follow us on social media at The Osasu Show, at Osasu Igmanadian, at TOS TV Network, and at The Osasu Show Foundation on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Visit our website for news and sustainable development and current affairs across Africa. That's www.tostvnetwork.com. Also, watch the other shows that we've produced at TOS TV Network on our website and our YouTube channel. I'll see you same time, same place next week, and until then, take very good care of yourself. God bless you.